Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy. How are you, love?
Kia ora, Pat. I am good. It is the end of my week. Yay.
Yay.
Yay is all I can say there.
Yay. It's the end of your week. We celebrate with you. Yeah, going well. Busy day. Looking forward. So you're back to regular hours because you had to do those changeover shifts when we went down to Chicago, eh?
Yeah, the last couple of weeks has kind of felt like a lot because there's only really been one day off in there. You know, okay, we went down to Chicago and that sort of thing, but it was still doing something. Yeah. And just covering for a workmate and stuff like that. So it has felt a longer couple of weeks than I would have expected. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done that.
Nice. Well, there you go. I am watching a series at the moment called Travelers. Have you watched it? It's 2016, 2017, 2018.
Oh yeah, I watched it when it was fairly new. It had some really, really good ideas, and then I don't want to spoil it, Pat. They cancel it before you get any satisfaction.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the first series, and at the end of the first series, everyone there's this massive cliffhanger that they get back to at the start of the second series, and they kind of solve it like that, and the cliffhanger disappears. But the reason I wanted to tell you about it, it features Will from Will and Grace. He's one of the stars in it. Is we just did episode 5 of season 2 tonight. And episode 5 of season 2 rings very differently today than possibly what it did in 2017. An antiviral formula is sent to Philip via messenger, and he memorizes it. Jenny passes the formula on to fellow traveller Derek, so it can be synthesized and distributed to other traveller teams, as well as to people who would otherwise be super spreaders of the virus, which would historically kill 70,000 people. However, 2 weeks after dissemination, people around the world start contracting a virus even more dangerous than the original one. Watching a television program or a movie with that theme today hits very differently than it probably did in 2017. They were even talking about things like R values in this episode. The R value meaning how a virus duplicates itself to its hosts, I guess. So, yeah, I've been watching that over the last wee while, and it's the one episode tonight. It's like, oh crumbs, that's a different vibe than perhaps that possibly was at the time. And you're looking at it going, hang on, what this is 2017, and it's just very interesting.
Yeah, you remind me of a show that I watched a few years back called The Last Ship. Yeah. And the setup for that season is that there's a global pandemic that wipes out most of the Earth's population, apart from a US Navy ship at sea, which we follow as the hero of the story. But yeah, it's funny, this laughable concept of a global pandemic and the world going to shit. And it's like, this will never happen. It'll never happen. It's a good story. It'll never happen. We know how to react to a global pandemic now, and there's certainly everybody will just know what to do.
Well, in this episode, there's images of corridors filled with people coughing and being handed like at one stage they don't know what to do, so all they can do is hand this guy a box of masks, and so he puts his mask on and goes about his life, and it's a very different vibe. Anyway,
I remember during lockdown I decided to watch that film Contagion. I think
everyone
Contagion.
did.
Yeah, that was a bad idea to watch that in the middle of lockdown. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we've got a really interesting show coming up tonight. I'm fine. I've got to be careful because every time we do a show, we go, this bloody government. But this bloody government is starting to talk about reducing the new standards for insulation in houses. And there are public health experts who are saying this will literally lead to more deaths. So, we'll have a bit of a look at that. Also, benefit sanctions have gone up over 50%. We'll have a look at that. And look, I know what people are saying straight away. They're going to go, oh, this is all so depressing. We've got the, we pay you. We pay you with cute dogs, right? If it's all feeling a bit too much, we'll pay you. We'll give you what you need to make it. That's not a photo, by the way, because I can go, hey, Nala, there we go. So not a photo. I just
still alive.
Still alive.
Proof of
still
life.
Breathing. Okay. Thanks so much as well. We're getting entries coming into our theme tune competition. I guess technically you've got sort of till the end of next week. It's till the end of the month, so it might be next weekend, I guess, to get them in. A few more came in today. What we'll probably end up doing is playing several of them during the shows. Do a bit of a what do you think? Why don't you vote for your favourite? Which won't be the way we decide, because it's got to be so. Because I know what you'll do. You'll do like the British did, and you'll vote for Bodie McBoatface, just to be funny. So we're not going to put ourselves in that position.
We can do that ourselves.
We can do that ourselves. So, of course, Facebook and my Twitter feed is a place to find those kind of terms and conditions for that. But also, if you are someone who is already on board as a part of our patronage, we thank you. And if you want to be a part of it, helping what we do. We've got someone, it looks like an expat Kiwi living in Canada, sign up today. So we do have patrons all around the world. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News is the way to do it, and it does genuinely help us do what we're doing. And I guess for all of the people who don't contribute that way, which is fine, no guilt trip, I just want to remind you tonight, like we did last night, that this keeps the oil of the show going, so the parts keep moving. So for those of you who just choose to enjoy our content and be a lurker, you guys can say thanks to the patrons as well, because it's thanks to them that this continues on. And if you want to be a part of that, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. I was thinking about a meetup this week. I think we'll do it next weekend. And then also remember, you get early access to stuff that's dropping and various other little benefits as well. All right. I think that's it, Chewy, for a setup for the show, because we've got a guest coming up tonight. How about Associate Professor Grant Duncan? Grant, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. We're going to have an interesting conversation right now, but I'm wondering if at the end of it we might need a bit more dog love or not. We might do. Depends how people feel about it, I guess, maybe. So let's have a look at an article or a piece. Do you call it an article when it's on Substack? I don't know what to call these things.
Post.
Something like that. A post. Post on Substack which says Project 2025, what is it? And this is something that we have been talking about, that we've heard others talk about. If people want to read the article for themselves, my eyes are so bad. Grant Duncan PhD.substack.com. Did I get that right?
That's right. And it's free.
It's free. Do you have people who sign up for little extra things or anything? Or was it just a completely free blog, basically?
I have had people make pledges, but I haven't turned on paid subscriptions.
All right. Well, there you go. But something to think about for the future, Grant. Something to think about.
Building up slowly.
So Project 2025, what is it? I mean, I've got lots of questions. I've read your piece, and we've been doing the research around this, especially with what's happening with the Heritage Foundation and what's happening with Trump and RNC at the moment. But how about we just throw you the ball to start off with and give us a bit of a synopsis of what is Project 2025?
Well, I guess simply put, it's a 900-page book. It's huge, and but you could describe it as a conservative wish list. It's co-authored by a whole large team of people who are hand-picked American conservatives. It's a kind of, as I say, a wish list. It's what they would like an incoming conservative president and his or her administration to do from day one, hitting the ground running.
Yeah. We'll just say his day, his first day, because Republicans aren't putting any females forward, are they? Okay, so that's big picture what it is. With your research and looking into it, tell us some of the things you learned about that vision for the United States that places like the Heritage Foundation would like to see happen.
Well, I would regard it as quite radical in the sense of, not in the left-wing sense of radical, of course, but radical in the sense of really pulling up by the roots, pulling up the whole of the administration by the administrative state, the federal administrative state in the US, pulling it up by the roots and reorganizing it, abolishing things like the Federal Department of Education, for instance. It's pretty things like that. But reorganizing the whole border control and immigration system, as well as, of course, cracking down on immigration and deporting people. But so it's quite radical, but also it's a prescription for, I guess, increasing executive power from the White House down.
Yeah.
And so it really is, it could potentially overturn a lot of established conventions in American government.
Yeah. I want to read out a particular part of this that's from your Substack, because for me, it also feels like heavily influenced, if not completely controlled by, conservative Christianity as well. That's how it reads to me, at least. We constantly hear about this shining light on a hill that is America and the separation of church and state. But for a long time, I've been writing about and talking about what I reference as Sharia law. You know, people have Sharia or Sharia law. Well, they have Sharia law. It's like the Yahweh version of Sharia. That's what they want to do. And we saw that, like, when same-sex marriage came in, all of a sudden these conservative Christians who were in a position to, you know, to have to sign off on marriage certificates refused to do it, even though that was a part of their job and that kind of stuff. But anyway, the undergirding of that feels pretty strong in some of these things. I'll read this part out that you put. Pornography, it says, has no claim to protection under the First Amendment and should be outlawed. They want to delete every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation. I should say they want to delete from all of that the terms sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, equity and inclusion, DEI, gender, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and, quote, any other term to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights, unless it's pornography. Then we can deny those ones if it's that way. Gender reassignment of minors must end, they say. When you're looking through this, is this just the manifesto of right-wing Christian fundamentalists?
Yes, you could say that. It is very much based on their interpretation, and I stress their interpretation of Christian morality, particularly, and I see it very much in the tradition of 18th and 19th century Americans' establishment values, so to speak. When I say establishment, I mean in the historical sense of the values that established the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. It's very much a historically backward-looking document in the sense that, you know, as I said at one point in the post, why don't they just tell us that they're plagiarizing John Locke from the 17th century, for that matter? It is very much those kinds of a resurrection of those Enlightenment ideals that established the American Republic in the first place, with a strong emphasis, obviously, on its Protestant Christian foundations.
It's almost surprising they haven't suggested different fountains in which people can drink from, in my opinion, Grant. Chewy, mate, jump in.
I have tried reading through, as you said, 900 pages of a truly terrifying world vision that these people have concocted. I remember when Handmaid's Tale was you know, on TV, and going, this is crazy. You know, it's close, but it's crazy. And then this manifesto just seems like it's looked at that book or that TV show and gone, these are all great ideas. Let's roll this out. Do you think they have the juice to make this happen?
No, I don't, honestly. I mean, keep in mind, this is a conservative wish list. We mustn't mistake it for an actual Republican manifesto. There is a GOP manifesto that has been put out. You can find it online easily enough. It does reflect some of what one reads in this 900-page tome. So, no, I wouldn't. I mean, on the one hand, I wouldn't ignore it. But on the other hand, the question is, how scared should we be about it, so to speak? Well, you never know what a Trump administration, if there is a Trump 2.0, what they might do. But Trump himself has already distanced himself from it. And he's, for instance, said that it goes too far on abortion. I mean, there's always if he were in office, what's he going to actually do? We don't really know. Do we really trust the guy's word? Of course not. But all I'm getting at really is that I wouldn't see Project 2025 as a kind of plan or a playbook for the actual administration. It's a wish list of some influential and obviously well-funded conservatives.
And unfortunately, money finds favour within American politics in particular. It may not be the Republican manifesto per se, but it's certainly a Republican's wet dream. I mean, if they thought they could do it, many of these things would be in their to-do list. I think some of them they realise is just a bit untenable to society. That's how I kind of read it.
The United States is a highly individualistic, highly diverse society, and but the worry though is this. Here's the point: is that after this election, there's the distinct possibility that you have, or they have, they have Trump in the White House. They have Republican majorities in the Senate and the House, and of course they've got a conservative majority on the Supreme Court as well. So essentially what you have is a kind of minority rule. When I say minority, I mean that these Republicans don't really represent the majority necessarily of Americans and their values and needs at all. I mean, clearly, they do represent some, but not a majority. You essentially get a kind of conservative minority rule through all three branches of federal government in the United States, and many of the states will be even more extreme as well, some of the individual states. Project 2025 is a document that I think, if you've got the time to look at it, it's worth looking at if you can stomach it, and if you're serious about wanting to understand what the thinking is in the United States.
The other thing about it as well, and I talked about the conservative Christianity that feels like flows through it, is also the kind of influence of Milton Friedman or of the sort of free market enterprise. And here's an example of that you've written. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which houses the National Weather Service, National Marine Fisheries Service, and other components, form a colossal operation that has become one of the main drivers of the climate change alarm industry, is what it says. And, quote, as such, is harmful to the future of US prosperity. So they're looking at it to say, how's this going to make us money? It goes on to say that the NWS, quote, should be fully commercialized, its forecasting operations, end quote. Climate data, quote, should be presented neutrally without adjustments intended to support any one side in the climate debate. So you've got this sort of neoliberal thing, obviously, running through it as well, basically going, it's one step away from saying, look, if the weather forecasters can't provide a product that can be monetized, then maybe we'll have to say goodbye to the weather forecasters. If the public doesn't want to pay for them, obviously the public doesn't want them, Grant.
Well, I think this argument, once again, this is just its argument. I'm not endorsing it, okay? But its argument was that basically private sector weather forecasting is somehow more accurate. Now, I don't know whether that's a true statement or not, but that's their contention, and that this public service should be commercialized. But clearly, this is written by climate skeptics who talk about two sides or more than one side of the climate debate, and they want to get rid of this publicly funded. They want to defund or commercialize this agency that has been talking about the climate emergency. They don't like that. They want to do something about it. And by the way, it gets worse when you read it. I didn't quote the bits in there about public broadcasting. They basically want to defund the PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service, I think it stands for, and stuff, because they see that as a haven of left-wing ideology, rather like, say, a right-wing party in New Zealand might look askance at Radio New Zealand, for instance, and say, let's defund them. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's more or less what Project 2025 is saying about public broadcasting.
It's either this manifesto that we're talking about, or it might be the second script for Idiocracy. I haven't quite thought that through yet, because, when you don't understand why the plants aren't growing because the drink has electrolytes, It's kind of what it feels like, monetizing the weather being better. I think the biggest thing overall that, I haven't investigated as much as you, Grant, so I should just ask you about it, is it seems to be a place where you will no longer have neutral government workers. Like a new administration can come in and just get rid of everyone and then put their own people in there. And then so what you'll have is a GOP White House and a GOP, all the people that in the work around, all the heads of the departments, if they wanted to be, could all be aligned with their ideology as opposed to maybe thinking and doing what's best for the country.
This is a big issue in the United States. And so at the moment, a presidential transition basically appoints about 4,000 people. That's quite a lot. So already in the United States, you've got a whole layer of administration, not only in DC, but elsewhere, which basically has to be hired and fired, so to speak. That's normal, 4,000 positions. You're starting, not just in the White House, but all around the place, diplomats and so on and so forth. The figure that I heard was getting up to, say, a Trump presidency wanting to be able to hire and fire 50,000, and that's not the whole. That's not the whole of the federal government workforce, but the idea it's an old, once again, it's a good old 19th century idea. That goes back prior to the progressive era. Now, the progressive era introduced the idea that you just mentioned, which is let's get trained experts, scientifically trained or academically trained people who will be able to apply in a scientific way and administer things in a way that is in the best interests of the whole society, to the best of their knowledge and ability, and so on. People appointed on merit for their, and they retain their tenure on merit, and of course, they don't get sacked just because there's a change of boss or president in Washington. So, in the 19th century, and even unto this day, a lot of Americans don't like that idea. They don't see those career officials as independent at all now. There's a strong push or belief on the right that the administrative state is chock full of people with a left-wing bias. Now, I haven't done a survey. I'm not going to make a comment on whether there is such a political bias within the federal administration. It's a huge set of institutions, but that's the belief on the right in the United States, and they want those workers to be more obedient to the elected president, because after all, the president is elected; they're not.
Yeah. Chewy, you got anything else? Right. We're going to move on to talk about Trump in a bit, but so we're going to wrap up this part of the conversation and do some super chats in a sec. Chewy, you should definitely get in with some more thoughts before we move on, though.
Yeah, as you're talking there about them stripping out essentially their version of public servants and that sort of thing because they can't be trusted to be playing for the right team,
Which I do. Did, by the way.
Sorry, what was that?
That's what Luxon and Seymour have done too. Remember?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. I seem to remember one, and I don't like drawing comparisons between this and the Nazis and all of that sort of stuff. But one of the things that the Nazis did was that they actually set up almost like a shadow government of trusted people waiting for them to take power, and they could just switch out whole departments with their guys.
Chewy, can I just stop you right there, because I don't think that the comparison with the Nazis is appropriate. And if you read Project 2025, their claim, and once again, I'm not speaking for them or saying I believe them, but their claim is that they want to assert presidential will, not so that they can centralize government into an autocratic ruler or a one-party state, but so that they can devolve power down to states, counties, and families and so forth. They want to give power back to the people, and that's their purpose as they describe it. I'm not saying I believe them, but their version is that a powerful president would be able to dismantle or to a large, not entirely, but to a large extent, dismantle a lot of bureaucracy and return power back to the people. So they see this as a democratic thing to do. Now, I'm not saying I believe them, but I would just say, hey, hang on a minute, let's not start making comparisons with numbers.
But look, let me just speak on behalf of Chewy. I didn't know what Chewy was going to say. I don't think he was saying that these guys are like the Nazis. I felt like Chewy was about to say this example of government is like this example of government because
it's not.
Well, let me finish because
something quite different.
When you talk about giving it democratically back to the people, but the thing where it falls over, in my opinion, is they'll give it to the quote unquote right people, like because they'll give it back to the people, but only people that are subservient, that will do their will, that will then agree with them. They're very unlikely to give it to the pussy hat wearing left winger to do the job. They're going to give it to the correct people, even if they sell the idea of giving it back to the people.
And you're right there in relation to federal employees, but what you're failing to see here is the distinction between federal institutional administrative structures and the communities that they claim they want to empower. So I think it's just, I'm not speaking for, I don't want to have to speak for.
Definitely.
I just want to let's properly represent what they're actually saying, because these are people who are saying we're sick of being told what to do by the government, and we want families and communities and so forth to be able to decide for themselves. You take education, for example. It sounds very much like something that David Seymour would say, for instance, that he would like to give more power to parental choice and have less say coming into from Wellington bureaucrats as to what gets taught in schools. He wants more diversity and parental choice. So it is similar to things that we see in New Zealand, therefore, but similar kinds of arguments. But I think it's important to make that distinction between the authority, and Project 2025 is very clear about this. It distinguishes between the presidential authority in relation to the administrative state and personal authority and community or family responsibility for their own affairs.
I guess, again, I hear what you're saying, right? And you're more of an expert than this and me. Obviously, you've done more research. But when you talk about, giving it back or working with families and communities, it still feels like the idea is the right families and the right communities, because it feels a little bit, I know it's not the same, I'm not making comparison, but it feels a bit like when Family First talks about being family first, but they're truthfully only some families first. Like they won't go out and defend the lesbian couple wanting to do X, Y, and Z. They do. So they'll defend, quote, the right families, not necessarily all families.
Yes, in Project 2025, I would say that is absolutely right. Yes, they have a very limited view about what an appropriate lifestyle is.
Yeah.
Clearly, it doesn't involve pornography for a start. It's very much a sort of Christian vision. Now, there's nothing in there that whilst they say they wanted to eliminate all those terms from official documents, there's nothing in there, on the other hand, that I would say is, homophobic in particular. I mean, they're not saying that they want to outlaw homosexual acts or anything like that. So it doesn't go that far. But certainly there is a sense of delegitimization, if you like, from that point of view, shall we say, that the queer community, I think, would be outraged by this, because it's like you're trying to just expunge all of these ideas from official discourse.
And again, I mean, this is just conjecture, but from, knowing how the trajectory as to what they are asking for, much like people said, same-sex marriage is safe, and then Roe versus Wade failed, and there was some rumblings about, are they going to go after same-sex marriage next? I guess that's true. But again, if you speak to some of these hardline Christian conservative people, would they like to outlaw homosexuality? maybe they would like to go back to there as well. Where could it lead? I'm not a believer in necessarily the slippery slope, but if this is step one, holy crap, I don't want to see what step 100 is, Grant.
No, I don't either. And as I say, I'm always a little bit nervous when I'm talking about this, because I agree with you that I would hate to be, sitting here talking to you, say, in 10, 20 years' time. I hope we're still talking in 10, 20 years' time. And then saying, oh, my God, I didn't see this terrible fate coming. And I was much too soft on these people back in 2024. So I find it really difficult to know, because this could go two ways. On the one hand, there's a side of Trump and co that's very individualistic. It's like, you do your own thing, we won't interfere. But on the other hand, they are beholden to a conservative Christian electorate that not only is voting for them, but to a certain extent is funding them. Remember, they're also getting funds from some pretty not so conservative, wealthy people as well in Silicon Valley and so forth, who are coming to the party and giving them money, and wouldn't be happy, on the other hand, with homophobic kinds of policies and things like that. So it's I don't know which way this is going to go. My fear, though, is as you suggested, that this could just be step one on a journey that just gets worse and worse. On the other hand, don't forget, don't underestimate the incredible diversity of the United States, and it is a highly individualistic society as well as being highly diverse. I'm not sure if you're going to really be able to take. I mean, these fears of Handmaid's Tale type society. I don't know. Maybe not. I hope not.
Do you know what? I reckon we'll know a lot more in 24 hours, and because that's going to be after Trump's address at the RNC. I think a lot's going to be revealed in that message, because he has the opportunity to quell it,
True.
and basically say, I will be the unifier in chief. Now, I don't know if I believe he can do it, but he has the opportunity. There are some people who are saying he's changed his speech. I don't know what that means necessarily, but after he makes that speech tomorrow, I think we won't know 100% what's going to happen with Project 2025, but I think we'll have more of an answer if it's going to be like Trump's cosplaying on some level a Republican, and the Republicans have started to cosplay with him. And I don't think he is obviously a narcissist who loves adulation. All you need to do is see him with that smirk on his face, swaying from side to side when people are calling his name out. And, if a group strokes his ego enough and funds him enough and, buys out all his hotel rooms for a year, and it happens to want some of these things through, and they've got the House and the Senate, or the Congress and the Senate, who knows?
Oh, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right, Pat, that we should have a close look at what Trump is saying. I think that the brush with death over the weekend will have changed his attitude. I mean, it could go either way, because there's the example of, for instance, both Lenin and Mussolini both used assassination attempts to really, force to get much more forceful. On the other hand, he could use it as a sort of softening, unifying kind of event. Bear in mind, they brought into the convention the union boss from the Teamsters. There was Amber Rose, oddly enough, speaking on his behalf now. So there's a sense too that they're wanting to really reach into traditional left-wing territory around labour rights. Project 2025 even is talking about, for instance, unemployment insurance and giving workers more voice in the workplace and things like that. So this election, for better or worse, however it works out, it could turn out to be a major realignment in American politics, where which may end up confirming the Democratic Party's loss of a base in working class America, and the Republican Party really starting to overtake that space. So the appearance of the Teamsters boss, although he got a lot of stick from it from a lot of his union members, that nonetheless isn't a really significant statement, I think. His appearance there, as I say, not all of his members are happy about it, of course, but it tells you that the Republican Party has a strategy here, and it's reflected also in Project 2025. If you read, once again, their chapter about labor rights is very much focused on the American family and being workers being able to provide for the family, and that kind of conservative take on workers' rights. But on the other hand, they are actually interested in the well-being of workers, so they say. Now, Trump's
unless they're porn workers or sex workers, then they're not.
Yeah, well, fair point. Trump's tax policy is to lower. He's saying no taxes on tips. He wants to reduce taxes for workers. Also, he wants to reduce corporate taxes too, I think. So let's be realistic about him. But what I am noticing is that they're wanting to. But as I say, you just look at the audience that was in front of him when he got shot at on the weekend. These are ordinary working class Americans that he's speaking directly to. That's what he's targeting now. And now how successful or how well-meaning or how genuine it is, I don't want to. I'm not here to speak for the guy. But this is a clear Republican strategy. They've seen how the Democrats have abandoned that base, just like New Zealand Labor did. They made the same mistake, and it gets taken up. Same in the UK. You see those. You see former Labor voters going for Reform UK and Nigel Farage. These left-wing parties really have got some reflection to do about the space that they've opened up for their competitors.
Yeah. Hey, look, we've kept you far longer than we should. Chewie, you got anything you want to finish up with? But we'll wrap up now-ish and let Grant go, and we'll keep going.
Nothing specific, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been
thank you, guys.
Great...
It's been stimulating.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. We were going to get into a full argument about Donald Trump, which we started before we came on air, but we'll leave that for another day. Well, and thank you for your time.
All right. Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right. All the best, Grant.
Cheers, Grant.
Yeah. Now, I'm sorry we didn't get to all the chats and stuff that was happening because, we often tell people we're going to be between 10 and 25 minutes, and there's 35 minutes later. So we got to give some, do the right thing for the guests, but not keep them here forever in a day. Late fee, also Project 2025 bad, says Kiwi Bird. Thank you for the super chat. Peter says, at least the president in Idiocracy listened to a smarter person and changed his mind. Yeah, eventually, first of all, they threw him in jail.
I will not have President Camacho be sassed.
But eventually, they threw him in jail to start with, remember?
I also tried to kill him with a monster truck, but still,
yeah,
President Camacho, good.
And sorry, Gold, we didn't get to your super chats, but just to put them out there, plagiarising John Locke is more like plagiarising The Handmaid's Tale. I think they got covered anyway. And also Gold said Grant's thoughts on Biden making noises about the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, including adding an amendment to the Constitution to, quote, fix the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court. I haven't read that yet, so I might have to do a bit of research on that. I mean, the interesting thing is they were talking about if so here's the thing, right? If this was really a threat to democracy, why didn't Biden stack the court? There's nothing written down that you can't have more Supreme Court justices. He could have put 5 liberal, not neoliberal, but left-leaning ones in there and stack the court. Haven't done it. Why? Because Biden is kind of that old school politician who tries to reach across the aisle. A whole bunch of the Democrats in America who are older, who still try to reach across the aisle, haven't quite figured out yet that when you reach across the aisle to the GOP, they typically punch you in the face, but they keep trying to reach across the aisle. It's a bizarre thing.
Yeah, they're playing by a different rule set. I don't think the US has really recovered from what the Tea Party Republicans started.
Yeah.
And that was a pushback against, I guess, the way things had always been done. And I mean, I think when you go back far enough, whether the Democrats are Republican or they believed in small government and less taxation or big government and social programs, whatever, that they would legitimately try to work together. but I think the Tea Party Republicans really kicked open the door and left it open for MAGA.
Yeah.
And I think those are people that have come in, they've set fire to the rule book, they've flipped off all of the conventions, and they are playing dirty pool, while the Democrats are still trying to take the high road. And there's a lot to be said for that. But then when you're appointing court justices for life, and I think, what was it? Obama held off appointing someone.
No, they wouldn't let him appoint a judge. They refused to vote
maybe
for
that's
him.
what it. Yeah, but
and then when Donald
doing that because of where he was in his presidency, and then when
the same
thing happened with Trump, they were just like, not a problem.
And he actually said, I think it was McCarthy, one of the guys, the guy who looks like a turtle, actually basically went, no, different rules. He basically just straight up admitted it. And it's such a tough thing because I don't want to live in a world where parties reach across the aisle and punch each other in the face. But what do you do if that's what you're trying to do and someone keeps punching you in the face? Like, honestly, what do you do? Like, and the GOP can flip on a dime. I mean, I've been thinking about this today. The right, and whether you think it's the right in New Zealand or the right in America or whatever, for the last 5 to 10 years have been the ones screaming free speech. Free speech, absolute free. It's got to be absolute free speech. You know, the only thing that we should want to halter in free speech is direct calls to action. You know, that when it's a direct call to harm. Like, you can talk as whatever you want, and you can't say go and punch that person in the face. That's the only thing. They're the groups that have been anti-hate speech, right? We don't want to do hate speech. We can't do hate speech. I can call you whatever you want. I can say whatever you want, but it's not hate speech. And they've been the ones that will defend any joke. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. So we heard Tenacious D has just cancelled their tour of Australia and New Zealand because Kyle, when he had a birthday wish on stage, wished that the shooter hadn't missed. Pretty ill-timed joke. But the ones that have blown up about it are the ones for the past 10 years who have been saying jokes are just jokes. They don't mean anything. You can't cancel someone because of a joke. Then now they're cancelling people because of jokes. They're the ones who have been like free speech, unless it's a direct call to action, are now saying using the term bullseye is a hate crime, basically, and you must repent for it. I mean, Damien Grant was fantastic last night. I loved playing Damien Grant last night because he literally stood there and he defended all the things that Donald Trump had said. He defended him using the term bloodbath. He defended him using the term, there were good people on both sides. And then he went off and talked about the terms and how offensive the terms are that all the lefties are using. So the right gets a pass today to use aggressive, violent sounding metaphor. But because Donald Trump was shot at and hit, the left now don't get the same ability to use, quote unquote, violent, a bullseye, please. You're playing darts, metaphor. And it's completely flipped. So they are no longer free speech, which they never were, but they are no longer free speech. They are now pro-hate speech if it references Donald Trump. And they're prepared to not defend any joke. They've flipped in a week. Now, they've flipped because it's advantageous to them politically. And that's the worst part of it, actually. No one's going, you know what? Like I said last night, the guys from TVNZ didn't need to apologise for that salt gun thing in the Trump doll. Of course they didn't need to apologise. What? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Biden doesn't need to apologise for saying bullseye. I was talking to Grant about this before he came on, and I was like, no. What? Okay, Chewy, I'm not even going to prime you. I don't think you heard this part of the conversation, did you, when I was talking to him? Tell me what a bullseye looks like. Like, close your eyes and picture a bullseye. What do you see?
A concentric series of coloured circles.
Yeah. It's not got very little to do with the gun. I mean, you could say you aim a gun at a bullseye. You actually don't. I mean, what's her name from Alaska? Sarah Palin. She used actual crosshairs on targets when Gabby Gifford got shot. Crosshairs, completely you could attribute to a gun. Bullseye, what, dart, archery? It's not to do with AR-15s. And people are screaming at Biden for using that terminology. Do you denounce Biden for using the word bullseye? No. What? No. So here's the thing. If nothing had happened to Trump, would we be asking him to denounce it today? Of course we wouldn't. If Biden had said, I wish that Trump be assassinated, and he didn't, should he apologize for it today? Yes, of course. Because that's a call to action. This is the thing that these free speech purists have always talked about. See, the difference with us, as I think I can say this for you, Chewie, we're not free speech purists. We're like, there are lines. And the debate's always been, your line is here, our line is here. What's happened over the weekend is the GOP and the right have moved their line to be about now before the lefts. And it's just gross. It's wrong. It's just gross. And I'm not going to play the game. And although I got a bit of stick last night talking about Destiny, I will say, even though he was very ill-equipped for that conversation, he made a bit of a fool of himself. I congratulate him for not bending the knee when they were insisting that he denounce the shooter, not because he wouldn't denounce the shooter, we all would do that, but because they were using it in that instance as a political game to make the left do something that the right refuses to do in the same instance. That's all it was, right? Yes, of course, we don't need to say we denounce the shooter. Of course we do. Of course we do. But that wasn't what they were asking Destiny. They were saying to him, bow the knee and admit to our terms in this conversation. And he wouldn't. So good on him. Chewie, you've got some stuff there. Sorry, I finished my little rant.
No worries. I mean, you don't see imagery like that from left-wing candidates. You know, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene with an AR-15 with a ridiculous scope on it. Marjorie Greene, save America, stop socialism. How are you going to stop socialism?
Yeah, with that big gun. That big drum.
You know, it's the implication. You know, we're going to take
that is a call to violence. That is a call to violence because what she's holding is something to stop someone. If she's saying stop socialism, that there is far more a call to violence than mentioning the word bullseye when you're talking about we need to target someone. That there is far, far worse. And look, we did this the other night, but I've heard people talk about it more since. I think all the Americans are now following our lead, Chewie. Is that what's happening with the right and media at the moment is they're putting up all these clips of podcasters and comedians and announcers saying things like Trump is Hitler, Trump is like Hitler, right? And then we put up all the people who are saying that the left are all pedos and baby killers and drink the baby's blood and that kind of stuff, and they're all fucking politicians. Show me the list of 10 politicians that have said things that could be interpreted as something worth killing someone for. It's very hard to find it. Show me a list of the politicians on the right. You can probably get it off Twitter today. You can probably find that pretty easily. So it's just not like for like. It's not like for like. And whatsoever, it's not like for like. Hang on. There we go. Hey, mate. You all right there? You okay? Yeah, right. Sorry. I know. It's like a teenager, that one now. I'm sleeping. Leave me alone. Sleeping. Anything in the chat? Anything I get to?
I haven't been looking at chat because I've been going through my dream journal of fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene and ridiculous guns, and now I'm gonna have nightmares for breakfast. Jesus, I mean, where is it? Is the God? I've lost it. Is this? It's this one. Look at this. Like, what the fuck?
Well, that's everything. There's a Hummer there as well. So she's got a Hummer with the tray down and the gun and the everything.
I just want to see the following shots where she cops that scope right in the eye.
Mr. Arvid says in the chat, thank you for your super chat, bringing it back to New Zealand, in my opinion, Chippy tries to reach across the aisle here too. And look, I think to be fair, Luxon would reach across the aisle, but he's just got two... thinking pit bulls, some kind of analogy for, violent metaphorically with their words, controlling people around him that won't let him do it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was him by himself that Luxon might reach across the aisle. The other two, though, not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell. Mr. Alex, thank you very much for the super chat. Yesterday night, when One News did a segment on nurses and doctors leaving New Zealand, which they estimate at around 24,000, I really think it's time we give our nurses and doctors a better salary. Oh, I don't think you're right, Alex. I think that it's far more important that landlords get 2.9 billion. I just think that, because landlords add so much more to the day-to-day running of New Zealand than, what does a nurse really do? They get to wear comfy clothes and walk around, in hospitals. What do they really do?
Wave of voluntary redundancies coming through the New Zealand Defence Force and Police as well.
And guess where they're all going to go?
They're all going to fuck off to Australia. Because it's the vandalism from this government is so clear, and it is kind of like what this Project 2025 would be like. Is like they've come in with a list, and when you're trying to look like you're doing something, that you're making progress, you just go down the list, right? And the list that this government has come into, all three parties as part of the coalition of cunts, are just working the list. I mean, is this our pivot into the housing standards, the thing that nobody has asked for? Today has been a day of like the building industry is not asking for insulation standards to be relaxed. The housing manufacturers haven't asked for it. Who the fuck has asked for this?
Yeah. So what I realized today, Chewy, is a part of this government and their fetish to try and save every cent possible, no matter what, is what they're doing is they're saving dumb money. Well, they're saving smart money, and now they're spending dumb money. So what they're doing with the houses is it doesn't matter that the current standards give a better house, a safer house, a healthier house, a more long-lasting house. They're like, if we can save 5% on these people building their house, then they're going to vote for us again. But that's dumb money to save 5% or 3% or 1% and have a 20% less effective house. It's dumb. It's not smart. It's not good business decisions. Now, if you don't know quite what we're talking about, then why don't we play a little bit of an interview from TV1 this morning, speaking to Professor Philippa Howden-Chapman, and she makes the case that this reduction of standards when it comes to insulation, that's it, will end up killing people. So I'll have a bit of a look at this.
When you heard the news that the Minister was looking at reducing insulation standards, what was your reaction?
I was staggered, frankly. I mean, this was impeccably developed and implemented policy that had the support after extensive consultation with everybody involved, from builders, manufacturing, the public, and so forth. And to reverse that.
So that the other word for that would be consensus. There is unanimous consensus by everyone that this is the right thing to do, except for the government. On the
anecdotal evidence of one builder in Tauranga, I found it very strange that the minister would do that. And so I gathered together the information that we know from our 30 years of work, that basically insulation stops too much heat coming into the house, but it retains the temperatures at the right temperature inside the house. So insulation has a dual function to keep warmth in and to keep the excess summer heat out. So it's a very, very useful, proven product. And even with the rise in this insulation, we're still half the standards that there are in Australia, Ireland, England, places that we compare ourselves with, and we have similar weather. So it was an extraordinary decision.
You say that more people could die as a result of this. You also mentioned that your 30 years of extensive work, you've also worked with the World Health Organization when it comes to healthier, warmer homes. So what in your research, what in your experience of working with WHO leads you to say that, you know, there are serious health issues here and that more people could die?
Well, we've done, as I said, extensive research with other agencies like Motu and Brands and so forth, and we've been able to show that there are a number of positive effects from having insulation. Children are less likely to get sick, less likely to have days off school.
Oh, so that would help keeping those the rolls up that they're trying to do as well. Interesting that.
Parents are less likely to have days off work, less likely to use pharmaceuticals, less likely to go into hospital. And
in other words, it costs the country a lot less when people insulate their houses correctly. It costs the country less, it costs the family less, and they're healthier.
We know that people who are vulnerable from heart conditions or from respiratory conditions are less likely to die in winter when there's insulation in the house. We're just slowly, and we've made a big step with H1, rising our standards so that we're more similar to other countries with the same kind of temperatures. So
there you go. That'll us for now. We can play out of there. So, Chewie, I've talked all through that. You have at it, sir.
I saw the story and I was blown away. There is one section of New Zealanders that are going to benefit from this. There is the only ones that will benefit this are housing developers.
Yeah. Yeah.
That the numbers that Penk
Slumlords
used was that these insulation standards add $50,000 to the cost of a house. Now, it took less than a day for that to get blown out of the water. That it's actually probably closer to $10,000 to $15,000 to a house, which for the owner, they make back in just a couple of years of lower electricity usage for heating and cooling.
I mean, also, just before you move on, I mean, you think about, a section is 300,000 to 500,000. A house to build is probably 400,000 to 600,000 minimum. So you got $1 million going in. $10,000 would be what, 1%. So it's a 1% increase to have a much better, much healthier, much safer functioning home. Sorry, keep going, Joey.
It's also more likely that this $50,000 number that they were talking about comes from what it adds to a house worth probably $1.5 million. In the scheme of the things, it's fucking tiny. Yeah. New Zealand has famously bad housing stock. We've always under insulated. So a lot of work was done to go, well, what do we do to move forward? Climate's changing. We need to do better. And there are huge downstream benefits for everyone. Everyone's healthier. We have less time off work, less time off school, less medicines, less respiratory infections, all of these things that have a downstream payoff for the country going over decades, for the life of this house. It's fucking worth it. And then they talk to the manufacturers, the people that are going to be making these windows, these insulation pieces, and they went, yep, cool, if that's the way that we're going, we will spend the money to get the equipment to build these windows, as an example. And then to have this government, the government of business, come around and shit on them and go, that's a shame you bought all of that equipment. These developers are not going to use it because they don't have to anymore. Yeah. The laughable example that they used was, if you put too much insulation in the house will be too hot. What a bunch of ass, because insulation works both ways. If you've put more insulation in your house and now it's too hot, you have designed that house poorly, which is another sign of an absolute bullshit money-grubbing housing developer. And that's who Penk is talking to.
Yep, and Penk wouldn't go on the show. Scheduling. And later on in that show, the
house is too hot.
The professor talked also about the building of the house, and it will last longer, like I referenced earlier. And you think about the resale of that house. If you've now got it insulated properly, it's going to be worth more when you resell. It's just there is actually not one good reason to do it. It doesn't make the house that much more expensive. It does make it less attractive when you sell it. It makes the house healthier when you live in it. There's literally, someone in the chat try and find a reason why. Kiwibird might be getting close. Some people may die, but it's a national sacrifice that Luxon is willing to make. Thank you for your super chat. Peter
that are
says the
building
minister
these
should come down
houses.
to Dunedin in the winter and spend a few nights in an under-insulated house. And one more, Ruru says 30 child deaths and 30,000 hospitalisations per year are linked to preventable housing-related conditions in New Zealand. Sourcing is Dr. Neville Pearce, I guess, Otago University. Chewy.
I mean, if you're building your own house and you're designing it and you're spending all your money and that sort of thing, and you're just managing the project, you would absolutely go, yes, I want a warm, dry house. You know, I want to maximize my energy usage, so I'm cutting down my energy bills. That's just a no-brainer. But when you're a developer who's doing a subdivision and building 25 houses and you're just looking at the numbers,
Yep, flip them.
what's the least I can spend on this house for the most I can sell it for? And people, when they look at houses that are already built from, they don't look at features like that.
Yeah.
They're not the hot, sexy. They look at the number of bathrooms, how big's the garage, all of those sort of things. Those are things that will be overlooked by the buyers, and they will be the ones that are paying the cost, while the developer laughs all the way to the bank.
Yep. All right. Hey, it's you know, we've been going an hour, so let's just get to this last story. It's let's hang on. Just gonna do this. Right. Let's talk about the government bashing beneficiaries, shall we? I think it's probably time to get into a cheerier subject matter. This is a story not from tonight, but it relates to what we're going to talk about. I've got an article to read to you, or a part of the article to read to you, but let's get some of the background as to what this beneficiary bashing is all about.
Government says caseworkers will be hitting the phones to reach 4,000 more job seekers under 25. But if they don't pick up, they could be sanctioned, as senior reporter Juliet Speedy explains.
Did you get that? If you don't answer your phone, you might get sanctioned.
The government says these old things are the ticket to getting more young people into work.
We've introduced phone-based case management for young job seekers. What we want to do is have more contact with them to improve their chances of getting into employment.
The minister says phone contact will provide 4,000 more job seekers aged under 25 with ongoing support and improve their chances of getting a job.
It's much easier for a job seeker to meet that work obligation. They don't have to travel into an MSD office, for example.
And the government says if phone calls are missed without good reason, there could be sanctions.
For many people, communication over the phone, they may face some of the same online communication, and that can be around things like having an unreliable or broken phone, not wanting to take a call from an unknown caller.
She says,
That's me. I don't pick up to unknown numbers. So I get it.
There can't be a narrow approach.
The key thing is communicating with people in a way that's going to meet their needs. And for us in our work around digital exclusion, we've found that one size does not fit all.
And the government sure has a reason to engage. The number of people on the job seeker support benefit has risen by thousands from last year. And that number is expected to keep growing.
Wasn't it Nicola Willis said just go get a job? If you don't like
go get a job.
Just go get a job. Just go get a job.
Haven't actually seen any evidence to support phone case management as better than case management face-to-face, and a little bit concerned that the reason they are probably doing this is the massive increase in the number of people on benefit.
The government says it's all part of its commitment to help some people back into work.
Oh, they misread that. It's all part of their commitment to save money for tax breaks and landlords. They obviously got the wrong script out then.
Our belief is that people, if they can work, they should.
And that, they say, might start with a phone call.
So I'm going to go read part of an article as well, Chewy, to summarise some about what's going on today. But you want to have a crack at that first of all?
It's just mean. It's mean government, and it's punching down. It's not. It's the usual grab bag of like, yes, you look tough. You say you're cracking down. You're going to play up the myth that if you're on job seeker, you're some mooching benefit queen, that sort of thing. While this government have created policies that put more people on that job seeker benefit.
Yeah.
And as we've discussed, a lot of people that are on the job seeker benefit for longer periods of time are disabled.
Yeah.
So it's
100%.
just that. It's just mean government.
Yeah. Well, you think that's, well, I don't mean to to give you more means now, but let's just read out the story that's come out from today. Beneficiaries are feeling the impact of the government's tougher stance, with the number of sanctions issued in the June quarter this year up by more than 50%. The latest data from Ministry of Social Development shows that at the end of June, 381,000 people were receiving a main benefit of some kind, up 8.3%, or about 30,000 people compared to June 2023. Of those, about 114,000 were receiving job seeker support. Work Ready, up 14.8%, 15% year on year. Economist Shamabil Yaqub said that was expected given the state of the economy, and more increases were likely. It's only just begun. Northland had the largest proportion of population on job seeker of anywhere in the country at 10.5%. NZ Council of Trade Unions Policy Director and economist Craig Rennie said he expected the numbers to increase steadily from here. Treasury had forecast a total of 47,000 people losing their jobs between when the new government took office and its peak. Rennie said that was likely to be an underestimate. About a third of those people would be expected to end up on a benefit. He said the data also shows an increase in the number of sanctions being applied to the benefits, reducing what people are paid. The government has warned it planned to take tougher stance on beneficiaries who did not fulfil their work qualifications. Social Development Minister Louise Upston said from June there would be work check-ins for job seekers who have been on a benefit for at least 6 months, particularly young people, to make sure job seeker beneficiaries are taking appropriate steps to find employment and are receiving the right help. There were 10,389 sanctions issued in the June quarter, up 3,630 or 53.7% compared to June 2023. I like it how they just say it now. They just say it. They just say, we're going to attack the poor people, especially the poor young people. They just say it. Particularly young people. It's just there. It's out there. They just say it. Sir.
I of course, I have doubts on how effective this is going to be. I think they don't expect it to be effective.
Yeah.
And again, it's what problem are they trying to solve? Is the problem trying to get long-term unemployed into employment? Mm-hmm. Or is the problem the fact that they pay the long-term unemployed a benefit? You know, if you're going to get, like, I know my admittedly very brief time of being unemployed, being summoned into WINS was a dreadful experience.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, like, you know, being called out of the blue and given a third degree by someone in a call center. You know, those people are like, they're just setting people up to explode. And like, oh, well, Mr. Smith, you were very mean to the person on the call center when we tried to see what you're up to. And so now we're taking your benefit away. Tick in the box, another person off job seeker. Fantastic.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's as you've said just now. You know, their one issue prior to the election was they weren't the government. They solved that. The one issue they've got now, which they're constantly looking to sort out, is how do they fulfil those promises they made pre-election, especially to landlords and secondarily to people who want tax cuts. And that's it.
Hey,
and
Mr. Smith, have you found gainful employment yet? If not, you could come and work in our call centre calling other jobless people.
Well, I mean, Caleb makes a fairly good point. Thank you for your super chat, Caleb. They should put this effort into creating jobs. Remember, this is the government of business. You know, this is the party of business. We're always told that it's the small business owners that, you know, they drive the economy because they create the jobs for other people. So why aren't they putting this effort into what they preach about creating jobs? You know, we give tax cuts to the top because it trickles down. They create the jobs. Okay. So now put your money where your mouth is and show us how this so-called Shangri-La system works, and then there'll be no beneficiaries. Go on, just show us how you've been talking about it for 40 years, literally 40-year anniversary of neoliberalism. So now just show us how it works, and everyone will be happy. Easy.
No, Pat, look, I've solved this before.
Oh, good.
Guess what? It comes all the way back to housing again.
Yep.
It's because these businesses that could be employing these people don't have the money because there's no investment in business in New Zealand. There's no investment in building things in New Zealand. It is just parking your money in a building. And that's it. You know, people can't afford to take risks on a new idea and employ people. They can't. This government has tanked the economy. They have tanked it. Business confidence is in the toilet. Businesses are all saying people aren't spending their money. That happens when they're scared about what's going to happen. And that's come from this government. Previous governments, we had problems with inflation, sure, but people were still spending their money.
Yeah.
You know, I see it on the daily now that it's people talking about, I need to cut costs. You know, and look, I'm going to pivot into something else so we don't miss this today.
Okay.
Because there's so much to cover.
All right.
Minister Costello announcing out of fucking nowhere, again, another policy that goes in the pile of who the fuck asked for this. Slashing excise tax on heated tobacco products.
Yeah.
Now, I had to look this up because I'd never heard of this sort of thing because I just assumed part of consuming tobacco is fucking heating it up by setting it on fire. Heated tobacco products are a failed project from one company, Philip Morris. They saw the writing on the wall a few years back that governments were cracking down on tobacco. They needed a new technology. Other companies went with vapes. Philip Morris went with heated tobacco products, which is basically a vape, but you put a stick of tobacco, which is heated up rather than burned, and you breathe that in. It has failed everywhere. But Philip Morris have invested billions into this to try and retain some relevance in their product. Now, isn't it funny that our Associate Health Minister has said that they're going to slash excise tax on these products as a health measure because anything that helps people stopping actually smoking tobacco has got to be good. And isn't it
smoking tobacco by smoking tobacco?
Yeah, by consuming tobacco in a slightly different way. Isn't it funny that our Associate Health Minister, who has such clear and strong links with Philip Morris, is out there making it easier for a Philip Morris product to skip some tax? It's mental.
It is
This
mental.
wasn't spoken about. It was just dropped out there today.
Yep.
She doesn't want to do interviews about it.
No one's
It is
asked for.
corruption. It's just corruption.
Mr. Arvid says on the chat, thank you for the super chat, help some get work as in 1 out of 100 and they'll over the other 99. Debaser says, is this trickle up economics? Take money from the poor in order to pay for tax cuts. And I don't know if you noticed that, weren't you? I kind of probably shouldn't have been messing around while you're in your very serious rant. But Tafiri says, dog host show names Pats and Chew Toys. So I apologise. I was messing around when
I see what's happened.
that happened. There was, well, I did that. I'm sorry. No one said anything.
Nala doesn't have a name.
Yeah,
on her window.
She can't.
Can you not
doesn't
do that?
work. No,
It doesn't work.
So. No, it's only me because it's my because it only sees one camera in my studio. So maybe I'll get a little name badge and stick it there to the wall or something, so people will know.
Exhibit A, buttery croissant.
You keep calling her the croissant because she's
because she's croissant coloured and croissant shaped.
She's snoring at the moment.
That is a croissant.
What's next? Government issued those pouches you put in your lips, though, a bit like chewing tobacco, but they're just pouches. We've also starred Kiwi Rascal. I don't know if we've said that or not. People need to understand that almost every unemployed person you meet doesn't want to be unemployed. It's no fucking bed of roses, I can tell you what. Yes, very good. Very good. Well, Chewy, that's all the stories for today. Is there anything else you want to you want to wrap up on, or anything else you want to share?
I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again from when I was unemployed. I was working 3 part-time jobs. I was still registered on whatever that equivalent of job seeker was back then. But every week I would ring up and go, no, I don't need it this week because I've made enough money from my 3 part-time jobs. But I was still on that list of being a job seeker who was not in full-time employment.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 part-time jobs. That wasn't enough. So they would call me up to come in. And I remember getting a call one day that was like, we found full-time employment for you. And because you filled out a form that said what your skills were or what you were interested in working at, I was like, oh, okay, well, that found me something. I'll go in and have a look. What it was I think less than 8 weeks of seasonal onion picking outside of where I lived. So I had to travel there as well. And I was just like, so that would mean that I would lose these 3 part-time but permanent jobs to get off your list. And to turn it down was a big deal. I mean, you can't turn down an offer of legitimate work. And I was like, it's not a long-term proposition. I will have to pay money to travel and stay in the place. And then the job dries up after 8 weeks. And then these jobs that I have had disappear.
Mm.
You can't turn it down. Okay, take me off the list. And as far as wins were concerned, job done.
Yeah, of course.
I had less surety in my life that if one of these jobs dried up, that I didn't have to go through all of this process again. Now, I was lucky because, I had nothing counting me out. I didn't have a disability. I didn't have a criminal record, anything like that. I was privileged. But that's how I was treated. How does someone that is less privileged than me navigate that system?
Yeah. Yeah. And most importantly, Kiwi Bird does say ogres are like onions, Joey. So, there was an upside, I guess.
Do you know who else is like an onion?
I know who you're going to say. Yeah.
Little Oliver. Every layer you peel away, more shit.
I might choose to go live tomorrow afternoon, team. So if you're watching us on YouTube in particular, make sure you hit the notification bell. Once Trump
what time
makes
is that?
I'm not 100% sure yet. It'll probably be like around lunchtime-ish.
Okay, ping me. I might be around.
Okay, so I might jump in when Trump is speaking. Might not either. Depends how the day actually goes. I'll probably be in the studio just working anyway. So make sure you hit the notification bell if you haven't already, if you're on YouTube, in case we do. You're going to say Chew Toys?
I was going to say, speaking of the Republican National Convention, one of the things that I wanted to mention, and this is not new to this year, this has happened at previous Republican National Conventions, the amount of delegates and hangers-on for the Republican Party that are in that one place have crashed the Grindr servers.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too.
I love that.
RNC gay dating app. People haven't seen it. The heading is Grindr Super Bowl. Oh God, turn off ad blocker. Okay, hang on. Yes, you can pause it on this site. Now, here we go. There's the story. Grindr Super Bowl, gay ex-lawmaker exposes RNC amid spike in reported app outages. They're using it so much, they're crashing it.
They're breaking it.
Openly gay, disgraced former New York congressman. Well, I have to say that's not a very good source for the truth, though. George Santos, executives at the popular gay dating app called Grindr, are calling the Republican National Convention the Grindr Super Bowl amid reported spikes in outages of the app. Yeah, we take that with a bucket full of salt because he's an absolute.
He's just a liar.
You know he's lying when his lips are moving. That's who he is.
Yeah. But this is something that is documented. It is something that has happened in previous years. We don't need George Santos to tell us it goes on. Yeah. And I think that just cuts to the absolute core of the hypocrisy of these people.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing wrong with being gay and going on a gay hookup site while you're out of town. There is a big problem with it when you're anti-trans, anti-gay, anti-queer, religious fundamentalists.
And have a wife at home. That's the big one as well, and have a wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, team. Well, it's been a fun week. It's been a good time. And remember, we're running a big competition, giving away $500 for you to replace this song. Hang on, do that again. That was pretty slick.
Yeah,
this
you
song.
want to press the little triangle button. There we go.
Pick up the news, big Harry style, keeping it loose. New Zealand, where the politics play, they bring the truth every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand. No time for cheese, just facts straight up. Plan and chew, never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar. Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and chew, they'll make the right choice.
All right, team. As I said, make sure you hit that notification bell just in case we go live tomorrow afternoon. Other than that, though, we'll be back Monday night for another edition of Big Hairy News. If you want to enter the competition to replace this theme song, go to the Facebook page, go to my Twitter page for all the conditions. Send any questions to bighairynews@gmail.com, and we'll give you some lowdown to some of the entries that have come in next week. We'll play some stuff for you. That's pretty much it from me, Chewy.
I got nothing.
You got nothing.
Nala,
we all
what
good?
about you?
Yeah, no,
Yep,
she's
Nala's
good as well.
out.
All right, team, all the best. We'll catch you Monday night from 9 p.m. for another live edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, man. No, puppy.